Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to a new episode of GTF, Gabriel Talks Football. I am Aldo Gandia, and we've got a jam-packed show. We got so much to talk about. Greg and I haven't had an opportunity to talk about last week's game. We'll cover that. We'll cover his latest article at the Windy City Gridiron about the draft, and we'll talk about a plethora of other things. I'm not even sure I used that word correctly. Greg, who is such a great writer, can correct me. Let's welcome him now. Great, Gabriel. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing good. A shot of adrenaline has coursed my veins here because I get the opportunity to talk football with you, and there are plenty of people gathering in the chat room ready to fire some questions away at you. So where do you want to begin, sir?
Wherever you want. You
All
got
right.
the mic.
Oh, your overall impressions of the loss in New York to the Giants, and I saw that you tweeted something out about the offensive play calling. It appeared that you were less than happy, so I'd like for you to expound on that.
Yeah, I get what they're trying to do, but at the same time, I think they got to be a little bit more aggressive with the play calling. You know, they're trying to protect Justin. You know, he's still not totally acclimated. This is a difficult system. This isn't, so it takes some time to learn. Aaron Rodgers, as good as he is, was his fourth year before he became a starter playing in the system. He had Brett Favre in front of him for 3 years, and that was a good teacher.
Mm-hmm.
But, the fans expect a lot, but at the same time, you got to put Justin in the fire a little bit and let him try to make some plays. Now, granted, he's not at the top of his game, but we saw him make plays a year ago. Was it inconsistent? Absolutely. But he made plays. And there's games he passed for over 200 yards. There's games he passed over 250 yards. And we saw it in college. So, I don't know exactly what the problem is. You got to be sitting in Hallis Hall to know exactly what the problem is. Is it Justin's problem? Is it the coaching staff's problem? Is it a combination of the two? We can throw all the darts we want at the wall. We don't have the real answer.
Mm-hmm. We don't. And when we look at tape, we can decipher some things. We can figure some things out, but we can't. I had on a guest on Tuesday's Dan and Aldo show, Coach T, and I thought he put it really well. Even when you look at the tape, you still don't know exactly what went right, what went wrong, because you don't know the play call. You don't know how players were taught on certain things. And so that makes it a little bit of a problem. You don't know whether the quarterback was supposed to go right to left or left to right. You can look at the tape and follow his eyes, but that still may not be the overriding clue. You kind of agree with that approach from Coach T?
Yeah. It's funny. I had a text conversation with Ross Reed the other night, and I said, all 22 is the worst thing to put in the hand of fans.
Thank you.
Because they all become experts. And I said to Ross, it took me years to learn how to study tape right and to learn to evaluate right. It was a growing process. I've been doing this since 1981. And at 1981, I didn't know shit as compared to, what I know now. And you learn stuff. I worked for different people, worked for Bill Parcells, worked for Dan Reeves, worked for George Young, and worked in different schemes. So you pick up little things. Then I worked for some really good scouts. And so, you got to learn from everybody. And that's just the evaluation part. Now you get into the X's and O's. And I don't pretend to be an X and O guy. I'm not. I'm an evaluator. That's what I've been my whole life. I've coached 1 year. I don't care about the X's and O's. I care, can people play?
Mm-hmm.
That's what my job has always been, to determine if they play. Do they have the traits to be able to play the game? Okay. And do they have the wherewithal? Do they have the mental capacity to play the game and to do what they're going to be asked to do within a certain scheme? So, but now when you get the all 22 and they start looking at it, they go, oh, this guy was open, this guy was open, this guy. Well, number one, you don't know what the hell the play call was. You don't know if the receiver might be wide open. He might have run the wrong route.
Well, and that is a perfect segue to what I've got for you next.
Right, but let me finish.
Please finish,
there's receivers, especially in this scheme, and what makes it difficult for young receivers to get good early in a scheme like this is that you got to make a lot of sight adjustments. And so and what that means is, depending on what the defense does, your route could change.
Okay.
Just as you're coming off the line of scrimmage, and you got to be able to do that at full speed. And you got to make the correct adjustment. So there's all that plays into it. You could look at the line play and you could say, oh, he missed a block. Well, maybe it really wasn't his guy, because you don't know what the line calls are. So unless you know, that's why I like Pro Football Focus comes out with these grades within a few hours of the game, and I laugh at them because it takes coaches, a position coach, it takes them 4 hours, especially if they got a big group. I mean, if you got tight ends or you got a limited number, it's different. But you got to grade every single player on every play. That means you're looking at, if you got the offensive line, you're looking at each play at least 5 times. To grade the 5 players. It's not like you look at it once and you're trying to grade all 5 guys. You can't. It's impossible to do. To do it right, you got to. It's a long process, and you've got to know what each player is being asked to do within the scheme, within the play call.
Right.
And so when you got everybody now that they look at the all 22 and they go, this, and you know what? Most of them don't know, because they have no idea what the player is being asked to do.
Right. Now, I would like to say that there are a handful of people out there who do look at the all 22, and they may not know everything, but they at least provide some information that I think is worthwhile for people. But you're absolutely right. There are so many people out there who are examining all 22, and they're really not qualified. So, and I'm not qualified either. So I'm so happy to have a little bit of.
I'll give you a perfect example, because it is on defense. And you say, it looks like a corner, and to the naked eye, it looks like a corner got beat. And a lot of times the corner didn't get beat. The corner was doing what he was supposed to do. Is maybe supposed to have over the top help, from the safety, depending on exactly on what the defensive call was. And so, the poor guy gets roasted in the media, and he might have done his job, and the safety screwed up.
Yep, indeed. All right, let's take a look at this 4 verts play. Actually, what I want to do is play what Darnell Mooney and Justin Fields said about this 4 verts play. I've added the play over their sound bites. This is going to be about 45 seconds long. And then I
might have to see it a couple times. So,
well, yeah. What I've got is I've got the play isolated. So after we hear them, then I can play the play for you, and we can see it as often as you want. Here comes Mooney and Fields talking about the 4 verts play.
That's where it comes like a hassle of just like trying to learn the playbook so much. So last year we had that play call as well. It's called special. And number 3, like if you see cover 2 or whatever, you can split up the seam. And that's how it was last year. But we have the same name, the same play, and I was thinking I had two on one page, and I'm supposed to be more so to the right of the top safety, the right side safety, and that's where he was looking for me at.
Yeah, Mooney ran how we ran that play last year. So the number 3 receiver, if we get that coverage, he would take the middle of the field last year. But this year we're getting over to the other side of it, like it would be 2 out of 2, and then just hitting that same landmark from 3x1. But that play, that coverage, most likely thinking, one-on-one with the back check down, and of course me scrambling. So I was just doing what I was told.
Your immediate thoughts on that, because I got to tell you, they've added nuance, which is what we've been talking about, nuance to that play. A lot of people saw that and say, "Oh, he missed him down the middle."
Right,
Wow.
exactly. And you know what? And I think their explanations were pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And Mooney said, "I ran it like I was supposed to run it last year."
Right.
And it was bad. And this is this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so, whose fault is it? Is it Justin Fields' fault for not hitting the guy? Yeah, if he hits the guy, everybody's going to love it, right?
Right.
And it's probably a touchdown. But also, when it comes time to viewing the tape and the coach is great, he's getting a negative. 2 players are getting a negative, on the play, because you got to do what you're being coached to do.
Yep.
Now, I get it. Fans are saying, but the guy was wide open. But you got to play disciplined football.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it's part of the process of learning this scheme. And so everybody, it's obvious to me, not everybody's on the same page yet.
Right.
Now, Mooney played in Nagy's scheme for 2 seasons.
Right.
And now he's new to this season. And we talked about it, other things. You revert back sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
You see something, and the first thought that comes to your mind, you got to make a sight adjustment based on what he saw in coverage. So the first thought that came to his mind was, I got to do this. And he wasn't supposed to do this. He was supposed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's confusing. And the only way you work it out is keep going over it and over it and over it in practice. And it'll eventually get better. Now, I know it sounds like I'm trying to take away from criticism. I'm not doing that, but I just know how difficult it is. And I'll go back, because we talked about this just for a second before we started the show.
Mm-hmm.
2004, we bring in Lovey. It's a brand new offense. It's a brand new defense. We stunk. We won 5 freaking games that year. Okay, we had and the defensive line was totally new, because we used, the year before under Greg Blasch as a defensive coordinator, we had these big defensive line except for Alex Brown. And now we went to an entirely different scheme. We got rid of 3 players. We got rid of Phillip Daniels, Washington, Traylor, all those big guys we got rid of, brought in new people. They had to learn how to play a new scheme. And on offense, now that was Terry Shea's offense, and the offense itself is actually Mike Mart's offense, because Terry Shea worked for Mike Martz at one time. And I hate that offense, because it just, the offense was good when Martz was good with it, but it didn't evolve with the game. And we got rid of Terry after the first year, but still it was trying to get everybody on the same page and learning. We won 5 freaking games, but the next year we went to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
We won 10 or 11 in 2005. And then the following year we got to a Super Bowl. So patience is the first thing that you've got to have this year. And I've said this a number of times. For the front office, it's evaluating the players they have.
Mm-hmm.
People want to put on criticism, we didn't get the right guys to surround Fields. Well, he wants to see what Fields is too.
Mm-hmm.
Is he going to be the guy? And then he's not. I don't blame him for not spending money. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think he's going to spend a lot of money next year either, even though they're going to have $100 million.
Yeah, I thought so too. Yeah,
that's because if you look at some of the people he worked for, they weren't big spenders.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're a wise spender, and you've also got. And I mentioned this in the article the other day too. You've got to take care of the guys you want to keep. There's going to be guys you signed to 1-year contracts that you're going to want to keep and then sign to a multi-year deal, maybe a 2-year, 3-year deal or whatever. They're going to get some money. You got to determine if you want to bring back Roquan. He's got to get some money. There's other players that you're going to have to pay. Are you going to keep Montgomery, or are you going to let him go into free agency? Because if you keep him, you're going to have to pay him. So, you're going to use, and same with Jalen Johnson. You got to make a determination on Jalen Johnson, because you can redo him after the season, after the first of the year. So doesn't mean they're going to, but they can. And you could lock up a bunch of that $100 million before you even go outside the building, if there's guys they in fact feel deserve to get paid. Great
point, Greg. It's something I have not expressed, but something that I have been thinking about, and you basically articulated what my mind was trying to get around. This is a rebuild, and I'll tell you one thing. Arif Hassan was on the Buffon 55 show last night. He writes for Pro Football Network, used to write for The Athletic, outstanding writer, covers the Vikings, and he told us that one of the reasons Ryan Poles, he believes that Ryan Poles may have been offered the Vikings GM job, but one of the reasons Poles preferred the Chicago Bears job is because the Vikings still felt that they were in playoff mode and wanted instant playoff appearances, whereas with the Bears, he could build the thing, he could tear things apart and build things and not have to be, and management was expecting that you don't have to be in the playoffs in your very first season or even second season. Build it the way you think. And I think fans need to understand that. And I understand why Ryan Poles has not used that rebuild word, because it's off-putting to veterans like Robert Quinn. But it is a rebuild, and it's going to take some time, guys. So let's be patient is the theme.
Well, hey, look, there's highs and lows, with the fan situation here that to me is absolutely crazy. And I'm not criticizing the fans, but they get too high over a win and too low over a loss. Yeah. That I think they could beat the Giants. Yeah. Should they have beat the Giants? Yeah. They couldn't finish drives and get field goals. That's on the offense. They should have won that game. But here's what the reality is. The reality is they're going to win some games they shouldn't win, and they're going to lose some games they should win. And in the end, I've said all along, they're a best of 500 team. They might be 9-7. They might be 7-9. No, that's 8-9, 9-8, 7-11, or something like that. Or 7 and what would it be? 7-10. It's going to be somewhere in that area. And then, going into the draft, you're going to, you're probably not going to have a top 5 pick, but you're going to have a good pick, and you're going to have a good pick in every round. And then, and then there's a theory to that how you work that draft, and you work the draft depending on the strengths and weaknesses of the draft. And part of it has to do with what you did in free agency. They all work together. There's 2 modes of acquiring players: veteran free agency and the draft. And you've got to work hand in hand with those 2. You look at it and say, okay, I got a need here, here, and here. And you look at the strengths and weaknesses of free agency, the strengths and weaknesses of the draft, and you hope that in a perfect situation, you can get both between those 2 areas of acquisition. But sometimes it doesn't work out that way.
And for everyone who wants more information on that, Greg, who is an outstanding writer, has been writing for years, wrote for Pro Football Weekly's draft guide, all over the place, Pro Football Network, you name it, he's written for it. He's got an excellent article up at the Windy City Gridiron that talks about the draft and free agency and building a team. So you can get more information on that. Greg, I'd like to show 2 or 3 plays here. I don't think we need to see the 4 verts. I think the Mooney and Fields explained that correctly. What I'd like to show you first, though, is the very first pass call of the game. It was a completion to Darnell Mooney over the middle for 18 yards. And
is that the first one, or was the first one to Komet? Maybe
I think it was Mooney. I'm pretty sure it was Mooney. First quarter, 13:03, second down.
Yep.
So what I wanted to point out here is that this was a max protect play. Let me stop it here, and I'll do the end zone as well. But you will see that they are coming with a 5-man blitz, and we've got 7 guys blocking. And so that gives Mooney the time to step up in the pocket and hit the open guy right over the middle.
Fields time, you mean?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Fields.
No.
And so Mooney is making the nice move into that open part of the I don't know if it's called zone. You correct me, but he hits him over the middle. But why I wanted to share this with you is that as the game progressed, the only times that Fields had time to throw, with some exceptions, was on max protect. And so what that does is it limits the options of targets downfield, and that makes it really difficult for a quarterback to play football.
Well, when you're keeping a tight end to block,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, then that helps the defense coverage-wise because they got more guys to cover less.
Right, exactly.
In fact, you got a play that right over.
Sure.
Look who's you got a wide receiver blocking right there.
Exactly, number 19.
Brown.
Mm-hmm. Who's a good blocker, by the way. Look at him. He picks up the outside guy. He got his pads.
But it's so now the onus is on 2 people. The onus is on Fields, and the onus is on Mooney for running the right route and Fields for getting the ball out of his hand.
Mm-hmm. And
I can tell you, on this first drive,
mm-hmm.
you know, I was kind of excited because he had success early. So I thought that would, and that's why I got a little frustrated with the play calling, because he had success early, and let's build on that success. Because the more success he gets early, the better off he'll be, you know, during the course of a game. That's my opinion. You know,
yeah. And you know, a lot of people get down on Getsy. You've had some questions about Getsy's play calling, but that to me was an outstanding play call. Let's get the quarterback comfortable. Let's give him max protect. Let's give him probably a play they've run in practice 1,000,000 times to get him comfortable. And there was this high level of comfort in Justin Fields early in the game that I was applauding. But as the game wore on, I think the Giants, you know, knew what was coming, and it became more and more difficult for Justin Fields. And part of that difficulty had to do with the offensive line starting to collapse as the game went on. This is a sack of Justin Fields, and he's got Cole Kmet out in the flat and doesn't see him, I think, because at this point in the game, he was concerned about the pressure. I'll play it, and you can comment, sir. I apologize for the green glitches. The NFL Network is screwing me. You saw Kmet out on the left flat, and here's the end zone look. The pressure is coming in from the outside. He's got Kmet there. He doesn't pull the trigger, and he's sacked.
Okay, go do it. Go back right. No, not there. The other one.
Right here. Okay. Here it comes.
Now, this is my opinion, but I don't know exactly what they're being asked to do in the play. But here's when you throw the ball. Now,
right there, right?
Yeah.
Why didn't he do that? And I don't understand.
And we can't answer that, you know, because it's what's going on in his mind, and yeah, he's number one. He's thinking, I got to make a play, but is that going to be with my feet or is that going to be with my arm? And you've got to. He's got to correct that within himself. His first job is to make plays with his arm, I believe. Okay, then make plays with his feet and go from there. But at the same time, you got to have that play was there from what it looked like. And again, I'll go back to what I said, 15, 20 minutes ago. We think it was there. Did Cole Kmet actually run the right route? Where was he in the progression? Was he, he theoretically, and I'm not making an excuse here, theoretically, he could have been number 3. Okay, so if he's number 3, Justin's not even going to look at him. He's looking for 1 and 2. And in the meantime, he sees that guy coming in untouched.
Yeah.
This is what I mean by but you really got to know what they're being asked to do.
Right.
But when you look at that right now,
Excuse me.
The two inside receivers,
Mm-hmm.
they're covered.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep. Now, Aaron asked a question: could number 55 have jumped a route and taken it for a pick six if he would have pulled that trigger to Cole Kmet? I think not. But what do you think?
not if he got rid of it at the right time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
see, now here's another thing. Now you're asking him to be, Mahomes or something like this, but play it over. But now he makes this little move. He should have got it there, but right there now, right before you see that, the little sidearm.
Yes.
Do that little shortstop throw.
Right.
To first base. Okay. Do the same thing to Kmet. You might be off target on it, but the guys who have the talent to drop their arm and go low, you could do that and the play's there. But again, where is Kmet in the progression?
Mm-hmm.
And without knowing that, we can't really analyze the play correctly.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to say there's an open guy and he missed him.
Right.
But he's been taught or is being taught to go 1, 2, 3. And you got to know who 1 and 2 are.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I gotta present. Well, let me present this one piece of video because everyone's been talking about Lucas Patrick. Let's put him in at center and so forth. But I gotta tell you, man, I am not impressed with what I see out of him at guard. Here's an example: Fields is sacked for -9 yards. You'll see Lucas Patrick is playing the left guard position here, a position that he's has only played like about 10 pro games at, but he just gets bull rushed right into Justin Fields' lap.
Who's over him? Who's that? Is that?
Yeah, it's probably one of the greatest players in the history of football based on what I saw here. I'm not sure.
I'll tell you what, when he was at center last year at Green Bay,
Mm-hmm.
you never saw that. And I saw a bunch of his games. I saw at least 6 games.
Mm-hmm.
And, he looked great. He got beat there. And Mustafa has leveled off.
He has.
Okay. And he's getting beat. And, I thought, now Whitehair gets hurt. You had to put Patrick over on the left side. He hasn't even practiced on the left side. Now right away, fans say, well, I got beat. He stinks. Guy hasn't even practiced on that side all year.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Okay. And so now, and it's the exact opposite of playing right guard.
Mm-hmm.
You're playing in a left-handed stance versus a right-handed stance. Your feet are the direct opposite of what they are from the other side. There's subtle changes in the pass set, the way you use your hands, all of that stuff comes into play. Now, when you play it a lot, it might not be a big deal, but when you get thrown into a situation and you have not, since the last time he was at left guard was sometime during his career at Green Bay. So you got to give the guy a little slack on that because his technique could be off, and the technique is especially in pass protection, that's very, very important. It's easy to criticize, and I know it sounds like I'm making excuses. I get it. But I'm not. What I try to do here is, having had to sit in the office during the week, at Hallis Hall, and you go and you have wins and you have losses, and you're trying to figure out why. I never get too high over a win. I never get too low over a loss. I want to know why, who's playing good, who isn't playing good, and go from there. And why, if somebody didn't play good, why didn't they play good? Is there could be circumstances where we don't have the answer to that.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. But I got to tell you, and I'm not trying to pick on Justin Fields, but I've mentioned this a couple of times on other shows, and I want to get your reaction to it. Over at NFL.com, Lance Zierlein's scouting report for Justin Fields, tons and tons of positives. Overall, he ranked him that within 2 years, he should be a high-quality starter in the NFL. But when he listed his weaknesses, I saw a lot of things that he is still doing at the NFL level. Needs to improve pocket mobility for clean launch points, below average feel for edge pressure. Field vision is average in face of the blitz. Gradual operation time prevents expedited release. Needs to release the ball earlier on anticipatory throws. Needs to improve eye manipulation as a pro. Stagnant eyes invite coverage to the passing party. Forces receivers to slow down for deep throws. That one I haven't really noticed. And that's it. All of those things that he listed there, I'm still seeing an issue with Justin Fields. I know it's going to take time, but does it concern you at all that after 14, 15 starts, we're still seeing problems in all those weaknesses that were identified by one of the scouts of the draft?
Well, I like Lance. He's a good guy, and he's actually a friend of mine. I don't think he's the greatest evaluator. He's good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Lance's real job is he's a radio personality.
Mm-hmm.
In Houston, and he's a good guy, and his dad coached in the league forever. His dad was a offensive line coach, and a very, very good one for a long time. And Lance is a really good guy. He got this job with NFL.com. The guy who really taught Lance, besides his dad, was Ballard. Ballard and Lance are real good friends. Ballard lived in Houston most of his life. In fact, I met Lance in Houston. There was the Bears were playing on a Sunday somewhere, and I was in Houston because I had a game either at Texas or one of those places, and I was staying in Houston on Sunday, so we went to wherever, some sports bar where we could get the Bears game, and there was Chris and me and Lance. That's the first time I met him. And, really good guy, really knowledgeable guy. But, you look at his rankings and then see and then compare that to where they come off the board. And that's not really a criticism because, you got two scouts on the same team that are going to be different. Some guy may have them up here, another guy may have them down a lot lower, which is fine. It's an opinion, and it's an opinion-based business.
And again, I'm not picking on Justin Fields. I just want to learn why, it's taken so long. And as Jay Sanders points out, really, Aldo, it's his second year in a new system. What do you expect?
And it's first year in this system. And I wrote about this last week. He played one system last year, mm-hmm. and we all can agree on one thing: the way he was brought along was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he didn't get the reps he needed. They brought in Andy Dalton to play. I just think that when it gets down to it, the guy who was supposed to be the quarterback guru wasn't a quarterback guru,
mm-hmm.
meaning Matt Nagy. Mm-hmm. And his handling of the situation, because they all stunk. Not one, not two. They all did. Okay. So, and so was it the scheme? Was he being bullheaded with the scheme? Hey, that seems a good scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Watch Kansas City play. And right now, watch what Peterson's doing at Jacksonville.
Jacksonville, yeah.
Okay, and they're starting to put points on the board. So the scheme's a solid scheme. It's how you call plays with it, how you're using it, how you teach it, the execution, all of the above. And, we saw Mitch have a problem with reads.
Mm-hmm.
Fields seems to have a problem with reads. Now, I saw every one of his games his final year at Ohio State. So it was his junior year in college. He had the 1 year at Georgia, 2 years at Ohio State. There was 2 games, and one was Indiana. I can't remember who they were playing in the other game, but where he had a little difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
All the rest, in my opinion, he was lights out. Then you go fast forward and you go to that playoff game against Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
You can't find me a play where he did something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And he got hurt in that game. He got hurt, the second quarter of that game, and was playing with bruised ribs and still didn't miss a throw.
Mm-hmm.
And the timing was great. His reads were great. He went through a progression. So you can't tell me he can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's more confidence in himself, confidence that he's doing the right thing,
Mm-hmm.
within the play, and knowing exactly what he's supposed to do within the system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he's only been in this system for what? When you count the off-season program, 6 months.
Yep, exactly.
So and then learning how to do it, and then you go back to the first clip you showed with Mooney and Fields, and Mooney's going, I ran last year's route on this type of play, and Fields is saying, well, that's how we did it last year. So he's thinking he's trying to do the right thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I really believe this, and I hope I'm right and not wrong. It's about him getting confident within the scheme himself, and then the coaches will have more confidence in him, and then you'll see them open up the game. I'd like to see him open up the game now. So what if he makes a mistake? Yeah, fans are going to bitch.
Right.
Okay, who cares?
Mm-hmm.
The important thing is he grows.
Absolutely. That is the number one priority for this team, is to either grow or for Ryan Poles to, make the evaluation. This may not work with our team with this quarterback. My hope is that it will work, because we'd hate to start over by drafting another quarterback, acquiring another quarterback. Even if it's a veteran quarterback, I wouldn't want to go through that process again of bringing in a Jimmy Garoppolo and having him for 4 or 5 years and then probably playing mediocre football, because you haven't.
Look what happened. Perfect example is the Colts.
Mm-hmm.
Look what happened. They had their guy. And in training camp, he decides to hang up because of the beating he's taken,
Mm-hmm.
in Luck and Andrew Luck. And since then, they've had a quarterback a year because they can't get one.
Yep.
It's not like,
Exactly.
they're on sale somewhere over at Walmart or Target. Or Parcells used to say, call 1-800, get a quarterback. It doesn't work that way.
Yes. I wish I had handy this soundbite from Chris Ballard, excuse me, I always do that. Chris Ballard talking about acquiring a quarterback, and I'm paraphrasing here. He says it's not easy. You're always looking for a good young quarterback in the draft, but I'm not going to reach for a young quarterback just to put one on the roster. I'm going to try to select the right guy, and if I've got to go with a veteran, then so be it. So he said it much better than I just did, but it is a very, very tricky situation, and a lot of general managers who have won Super Bowls have done so because they've gotten lucky. Patriots, for instance. Tom Brady in the 6th round. How about that for luck? All right. Let's get to some questions here. Let's start with
one thing I want to hit on first.
Sure.
Is the draft, because we see a lot of comments later.
Mhm.
Kyler Gordon is struggling a little bit. Big deal. It doesn't bother me at all. It's a tough position to play. Rookies get picked on. Rookies get beat. Okay. How about this? The last 2 games, when you count the nickel scheme as a starting scheme, you got 3 out of 5 DBs in there are rookies.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those guys are going to get beat because that's who you're throwing at, and you got Vildor, who's almost like a rookie, but he's got some experience. But Vildor and Jackson are the only guys that are veterans.
Right.
And so you had the young Johnson's a rookie. The safety is a rookie. The slot corners are a rookie. These guys are going to get beat. So, but anyway, my point was, well, they should have taken one of the receivers. They keep going, Perkins from Georgia. Well, I know for a fact that, and I want to say this on here, Perkins is a fucking turd. Okay, he was off the board of many, many teams because of character issues. Now, I'm not going to say he's a criminal. That's not the point. He's an asshole. Okay, a me first asshole. And he's already shown it with Pittsburgh. He had a big temper tantrum on the sideline. He's a pretty good rookie. Shut your mouth and play the game.
I agree with you. And a lot of people don't account for that, behavior, character traits, how they're going to fit in the locker room and so forth. We've seen Bears teams here that had talent on offense, Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffrey, and so forth. But those guys were problem locker room players and may have, while they put up some sensational stats and highlights, but they were part of the problem with this team where they didn't respect.
Well, Marshall's a great example. I don't think he stayed with the team more than except Denver originally, but I don't think he stayed with the team more than 2 years. You loved his production. You hated the person.
Right. All right. Where do I want to go? I want to go to some questions here. Let's start with Aaron, who was at the Kentucky game. He says, do scouts sit in the stands? I saw a guy at the UK-NIU game that wasn't dressed like a fan, and I thought this would be the perfect question to ask. Of course they sit in the stands, right?
No. It depends on where you're at. Most places accommodate you in the press box.
Okay.
Or an auxiliary press box. Now, when I first started, for years and years, in fact, it's only been, say, the last 15 years that the Big Ten let you in the press box. In fact, before Penn State joined the Big Ten, I was always in the press box when I went to a Penn State game. And then the SID was Bud Tallman. He used to be with the Bills. And so I knew him going back to when I worked, started off with the Bills in 1901. He always gave me a great seat in the press box. And then they joined the Big Ten, and I get a note from Bud, hey, Greg, I can't take care of you anymore. You got to sit in the stands. And so that's just the way it was. The only place in the Big Ten that would put you in the press box was Minnesota, and they put you, in the old dome. They put you in the baseball press box over in the corner, which was fine with me. You're still, when you're in the stands, it's tough because people, and I'll give you a story in a minute, and you got all these people around you. It's noisy, and you're trying to get your work done.
Right.
And sometimes the seat they used to give you is terrible. Now, LSU years ago used to put us in the stands. Now they put you in the box. They expanded it, and they got plenty of room. But this goes back to, I think it was 93. I'm at an LSU Kentucky game, and LSU wasn't nearly as good as they are now. And the stadium was probably 2/3 full, where right now you can't buy a seat to get to an LSU game. So I'm in like a corner end zone seat, and I'm trying, and there weren't that many people around me, but I'm, taking notes and talking into a little mini, cassette recorder. And all of a sudden there's a tap on my shoulder. And I turn around, and it's a cop. He goes, boy, you some sort of fucking spy or something? Swear to God. Now the story, I said, no, I told him what I do. So he sits next to me the whole game. Now I didn't get any work done because he's asking me questions. So I got absolutely no work done at that game whatsoever. But he turned out to be a great guy. And, after the game, I was staying, it was a Sheraton then, it's a Marriott now in Baton Rouge. But he says to me, he goes, where's your car parked? And I said, hell, I'm 1.5 miles away because, parking wasn't that good. He goes, follow me. So his car is right outside the gate, one of the corner gates. His car, he drives me to my car, then escorts me to the hotel. I must have been to the hotel 15 minutes after that game was over.
That is awesome.
Now, fast forward, his name, he gives me his card.
Mhm.
His name was Winston Ashe. Ashe is a coon ass from Louisiana. And he, so he's a Cajun. And he said, now, son, you get in any trouble down here, I'm going to we didn't have cell phones then.
Mhm.
I'm putting my phone number on it. And he says, you give me a call, you get any trouble, I'll take care of it for you. So,
I love it.
so I see Hokie Gajan a couple days later, and Hokie was with the Saints. He played for the Saints, went to LSU. He died a couple years ago, but he later did the color commentary on the Saints radio network. And I'm telling Hokie the story. We're probably at Northwest Louisiana or someplace. He says, hey, I'm going to need that guy's number before you do. Give me his number. But then later on, remember during the big hurricane in what was it, 2005, 2006, and that just destroyed New Orleans. So we were playing New Orleans that year, and the game got moved to LSU. So I'm at, and the night before LSU plays, they played Appalachian State.
Mhm.
So I go to the Appalachian State LSU game the night before we played the Saints. And I'm on the sideline because the guy who got a sideline pass is Tony Medlin, who's the Bears equipment guy, was real tight, real good friends with the Appalachian State equipment guy. So he got me a sideline pass on the App State side. So I'm down there. So I see a bunch of Baton Rouge cops, and I walk up to them and I said, hey, I got to ask you guys something. I said, I told him the story I just told you from 1993. And I says, is Winston Ashe still around? He said he retired 3 weeks ago, and he became the commandant of the Baton Rouge Police Department.
Oh, how about that? How cool. What a great story. And as Aaron, the Bearded Bears fan, says, and one of the co-hosts of the Barfly Tailgate Show, that's just Southern hospitality, brother. So I love it. All right, I got a question here. This is Danger T, I think, joined us just a little while ago. It's a little bit repetitive about what we've been talking about, but he does bring up Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers struggling early on with this offense as well. We're seeing, I think, the perfect example right now is Russell Wilson. He's playing his first year under this new offense with the Denver Broncos, and he's not exactly lighting things up. What do you think?
Well, Russell Wilson, there's a two-part answer to that. And it's not just Russell Wilson, it's everybody else on the team too. They're all new to the system. They played it, and in Wilson's case, he played an entirely different scheme in Seattle. So now he's coming in, he's got, and it's breaking old habits. It's like go back to the film clip with Mooney. Well, I ran last year's route. Well, he was in the same system for so long in Seattle. That's the way his brain works. And it's now shifting over to that new scheme. And there's a lot of times when you get in the middle of the play and you're looking for where you were last year versus where you're supposed to look now. You follow what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Now, and then it's the same thing with the rest of the guys, because they were in a different scheme last year than they are this year. So it's everybody trying to get on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Rodgers, I don't know if he struggled. When he became a starter at Green Bay, he followed Brett Favre, but he wasn't playing in this scheme. This is the first third year or fourth year at Green Bay.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So he might have got off to, I have to go back and look at his numbers, say for the first half season, and see how he did in it. But it's still, it takes a while for things to become second nature, and they don't just click overnight. And now you had the fact, now he was already 10 plus years in the league when he started playing in it. So he'd already, from the understanding of reading a defense and knowing what the defense is going to throw at me, Rodgers was great at that, but it's still doing everything right with what he's being asked to do within the scheme. Now you get a guy like Justin Fields who played one scheme last year and then doing an entirely different scheme this year and trying to get involved with a bunch of other guys that are just learning the scheme for the first time. It's not easy to do.
It isn't. So again, the word of the day is patience. All right, let's get back to some more questions. I've got, I'd like to get a comment on this. Usama says, Poles sacrifice Fields' development for long-term success, not understanding that Fields' development is needed for long-term success. What do you think about what Mr. Ansari says?
I don't agree with that at all. And I'll tell you why. First, Poles was not going to come in here and spend a ton of money. And first of all, if you look at the wide receiver market, free agent market from this past spring, those numbers are way off. All because of the contract Christian Kirk got day one from Jacksonville. And so that bumped everybody else up. You get a lot of guys that got a lot of money, a lot more money than they would have gotten had everything stayed fairly similar to what was going on the year before. And he was not, having not known the, what Fields was going to do, he brings in some players that, he had some familiarity with. Pringle. He has familiarity with EQ. And then you had Mooney, and so you try to blend it together. And EQ knew the offense, so you knew that from that standpoint, it was going to be helpful. It's just, we keep going back to the same thing, getting everybody on the same page. It's not like these guys can't play. They got to go out and get a receiver. No, they got to learn to play together.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. All right, next question up on the board. Stephen Nagishi, where is your question, Stephen? I got it here. Does Dieter Iceland deserve a shot at center, or is he nothing more than a practice squad player? Dieter is probably the most popular guy in Chicago right now, given the way Mustafa's been playing.
I liked him coming out. What's this, his third year now?
Yes.
So that ought to give you your answer.
Mm-hmm.
He's never earned a regular shot. He was a pretty good player at Yale. I think it was Yale. I know it was an Ivy League school.
Mm-hmm.
But that's real low level of comp. Okay, so he's not going against NFL players in any of their games during the year. But he was a tough guy. He was physical. He's obviously smart. Came in as a guard. Now he's learning the center position. But do you trust him to play center in a regular season game when he never played the position until this year?
Mm-hmm.
So it's that. Now the coaching staff they're around him every day. They're going to get a feel for what he can and can't do. I firmly believe that had Cody Whitehair not gotten hurt, Patrick would have been starting at center this week.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. And that would have helped things. But Cody got hurt. And so now, you could do two things. You could put Patrick at center and then either Carter or bring up somebody from the practice squad and put them at left guard. But do you trust that situation?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's, I think and I'll tell you, they're not going to tell you who's lining up yet on Sunday. It still might be a little different lineup, because they put a guy down on IR. Cody's down on IR, and nobody's been brought up yet.
Mm-hmm.
At least as of right now, nobody's been brought up yet.
Right.
So what we see is the lineup. I know Flu said, well, what you saw at the end of the game, that's going to be the lineup going forward. Well, he's the first guy to tell you, I don't want to say anything about injuries. I don't want to say who's playing. Why? Well, I was a defensive coordinator for a long time. Matchups. I don't want them to know what the matchups are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So knowing you're going to find out who's playing center on Sunday.
Yep. Don't make it easy for the opposition. It makes sense. The question, let's stick with the offensive line. Kenny Ray, excuse me. Do you feel like Tevin Jenkins is the only player being publicly, outwardly held accountable?
I don't know if I agree with that either. Only that, I mean, they're not saying negative things about him, except that he didn't practice good 2 Wednesdays ago. So 2 weeks ago yesterday. So they started Patrick instead of him. He has played very well. But what this staff wants, and I totally get what they want, you want to play, you better practice good. And if he's not practicing good, there's something that we don't know that's going on with Tevin Jenkins.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, whether it's total commitment, work ethic, practice habits. I don't know what it is, and we're probably never going to know what it is. Talent-wise, way up here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've said this before on the show. I think they're trying to get him to learn how to become a pro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess what's frustrating for fans like Sam is that they haven't said anything about the poor play of Mustafa and Larry Borum at times too. I mean, everybody in that offensive line has played poorly at certain parts or certain portions of the game, and so far this season. And the only time, I guess I'll answer for Greg here and tell me if you agree with this. The only time they've brought up Tevin Jenkins is when there's been direct questions from the media about why was Jenkins not the starter when you were still rotating at the right guard position. And Eberflus said, he had a bad practice on Wednesday, and Jenkins responded to that saying he wasn't feeling well and he should have either told the team that or played hard through that. So I don't think these other players are in the tape room and getting a pass from any of these coaches.
He doesn't answer a question unless he's asked the question.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But he's not about to throw people under the bus.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but if he's asked a direct question, he'll answer it the best. Like the play. He said, the incomplete pass that turned out to be a fumble, ruled the fumble, which was the right call. It was a fumble when you look at the replay. But he said, yeah, every offensive lineman got a loaf on that play.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can tell you, looking at it from the standpoint of the offensive line, I get the loaf part, but at the same time, how are they supposed to know that? They're in front of the play,
Mm-hmm.
in front of the quarterback blocking, and the ball goes out, and so they don't know that it actually, he lost it a split second before his arm started moving forward, and it was really a fumble and an incomplete pass. So I guess the moral to them is it's regardless. You see the ball on the ground, you go after it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll sort it out at the end of the play. So that was the moral of the story, so to speak. But was it fair to give everybody a loaf? I'm not so sure on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there's some frustration on the part of fans here, like Jay Sanders says, I've seen Eberflus dodge questions, but he didn't have to throw Jenkins under the bus. That's his best lineman. And I don't know if he threw him under the bus or it's a good motivational tactic, like some people have said in the chat room. We don't know. But the good thing is that Jenkins is playing well and looks to be getting better and better. So whatever is going on and however he's been treated, it hasn't impacted his play on the football field. Let's talk about the defensive line here.
I want to just add one thing to that. Although I learned this from Parcells a long time ago. A lot of coaches think you treat every player the same. And Parcells was the exact opposite. Said you find out the personality of that player and you treat every player differently.
Mm-hmm.
Player A, you got to treat like this. Player B, you got to treat with kid gloves. You find out what's going to make that player work and perform to his optimum, and that's the way you work with him. So in saying that, none of us know Tevin Jenkins.
Mm-hmm.
Is he the type that performs better when you kick him in the ass? Or like Devin Hester? You couldn't hard coach Devin Hester. He'd go in the tank. You had to put your arm around him. You had to love him all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You had to explain things to him. Okay, so it's knowing that, knowing the personality of each player and how to motivate that player.
Mm-hmm. Love that. That's the way it should be, you know, in a lot of life instances too. You know, don't treat everybody the same. Sometimes, you know, the best way to get along with people is to know what they like, don't like, and you know, try to have conversations with those things in mind. B Minor wants to talk about the defensive line because he says we always are talking about the O line, but this D line needs help. We bring no pressure. And then later on, Kenny Roy, says Flus's guy number 55, Mohammed, has done virtually nothing all year, can't set the edge or affect the QB. Greg, take it away and talk about this defensive line. What have you seen? What do you like? What don't you like? Because they're not getting the sacks that you'd love to see from a defense, but there have been some good things.
Well, last week they didn't. Up until last week they were.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, what they have, 6 or 7 sacks in the first 2 games?
Yes.
Okay, so you're looking at the last game, and the last game is always the one that's fresh in your mind. They're playing a rotation. Quinn has 1 sack. He's got a lot of pressures. He's just not finishing. I've always thought, and you know, I think in his best year, Al-Qadim's only had 7.5 sacks. He's more of a all-around type player. He can play the run. He can play the pass. He's never going to be a double-digit sack guy.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a guy that plays hard. He was brought here because he plays hard. He knew and understood the scheme, and he knew that he was going to play within. Don't forget, he's not playing every down. What it gets down to is he's playing about half the downs because they're rotating 4 guys at those defensive end positions.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy who's getting a little bit more reps every week is the rookie, Robinson. Mm-hmm. Got a lot of talent. I mean, that's a guy who, you know, back in July, you're saying he isn't even going to play this year. He'd probably be on the practice squad.
Mm-hmm.
And he is a guy that's getting better all the time. I'll tell you the guy to me that is kind of starting to jump out. I think I agree that the overall play, the interior of the defensive line hasn't played as well as it has to play.
Right.
But at the same time, the guy who's making some plays is Jones.
Mm-hmm. Justin Jones.
Right. But I still think that I'm not so sure that if you can go into the draft and get a good 3, that he might not be better off at the other defensive tackle position.
Interesting.
Okay. And you're still going to do a rotation. And I talked about that in that article earlier in the week too, is that, 3 techniques are hard to find. Mm-hmm. 3 techniques for this scheme. Okay. You're looking for a specific type of player. He's got to be athletic. He's got to be quick off the ball. He's very important within this scheme. So finding the right guy is really hard. We got one of the best ever to play the position, and we were lucky. And Tommy Harris, and that was the first year Lovey came, and that was just a freak happenstance of that. Well, 2 things. I mean, he was the first defensive tackle taken off the board. That never happens. And we got him at 14. But like 8 receivers or 7 receivers or something went in the top 10, which usually doesn't happen. And and on top of that, some teams would red flag Tommy's knee. because he had a little, slightly arthritic condition in his knee. So he falls in our lap, and then in the second round we get another one that talent-wise was a first-round player. Who the hell's my dog barking?
I feel sorry for whoever that dog is, but I've seen that dog.
Somebody's probably going by the house, and so he gives them hell. But we get Tank in the second round. That if it wasn't for some concerns, then he was a first-round talent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed.
And we got Henry Melton a few years later, and Henry became a Pro Bowl 3 technique. Mm-hmm. But in fairness, Henry was drafted to be a left end,
mm-hmm.
and he had, in fact, when he started off his career at Texas, he was a running back, and a pretty good one. He was like a 260-pound running back. And then they moved him to the defensive line. He only played defensive line a couple of years at Texas. And he just kept growing, and he wasn't heavy. And all of a sudden, we drafted guys 260, 265. And we find out it's going to be real easy for him to get 285, and he was a natural 3. Because he had that athleticism that you need to play the 3 technique. And we moved it inside, he becomes a Pro Bowl player.
Nomad has asked me to ask you, do you know anything about Jalen Holmes, the defensive end that was signed to the Bears practice squad? He's from Ohio State, 6'5", 283. He came out of Ohio State with really good reports on him, but I guess he struggled a little bit as a pro. So we'll keep an eye on him and try to gather some more information for you, Nomad. Back to the offense here, because some questions about Justin Fields. For instance, straight up, Greg, does Greg think Fields will turn the corner? And then I'll add to that, do you think Sam Rush, and you and I talked about this before we went live, what do you make of Justin Fields' demeanor in these press conferences? He comes off like he's agitated and doesn't care to answer any questions. Should the Bears PR team be helping him to be more cool up front? Your thoughts on Justin Fields? Is he going to turn the corner? And what are your personal thoughts about when a player, particularly a quarterback who meets with the media so frequently, doesn't seem as engaged as perhaps the Bears PR department would love him to be?
Well, I think it's on them to help him.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's got to see that himself. In fact, the best way to help him is let him rewatch some of those things and say, this is the image you're putting out, about yourself. And you got to learn to, these are tough questions for the kid.
Yes.
Okay. And go back, he's 23 years old?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's not like he's 30 and he's been in the league for 8-9 years.
Mm-hmm.
And he can let some of that stuff bounce off. So, and he wants to be, there's not a doubt in my mind that his football character is excellent, and he wants to be a very good player, and is going to do what he can to be a very good player.
Mm-hmm.
But right now he's struggling, and he knows he's struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, he doesn't even want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it'd be better for the Bears. I mean, is there a rule that you got to put the quarterback out there every week?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there is. I think maybe they let him take a few weeks out from meeting with the media.
I agree 100% with that, Greg. Why are we doing this to this young man? He clearly wants to just focus on football. He's got to meet with the media after the game. He's got to meet with the media in the middle of the week. That's just too much. At least once a week is fine, and maybe missing a week or two on any one of those or both of those obligations is fine too. The key thing here is to develop him and get him into the proper state of mind. My concern is, I don't want him to grow frustrated with this coaching staff. He was asked by Patrick Finley, you've only thrown once, and Your dog just opened the door. That's the price.
And he just left.
Hi. You've only thrown the ball once out of like 19, 20 red zone attempts this season. And I'm paraphrasing, that may not be correct, but it's a very low percentage of pass plays in the red zone. He was asked if that was frustrating for him, and he said no. But the body language was saying, yeah, it is.
Well, he's never going to publicly question what the play call is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yes.
Not at this point of his career. It's just not going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Now, could he do that 10 years from now? Assuming that he takes that step. And we didn't answer that question before. Do I think he's going to get over the hump? Yes. And I'll tell you why. And I'll go back and I use two people. Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts. Josh Allen really struggled his first year. Wasn't a whole lot better, but the team was better his second year. Wasn't even a 60%. He had to learn. And he had his problems with the press too, standing in front of the press, answering questions because he wasn't playing that good. And when you don't play good, you don't feel good about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And look at him now. He's so outgoing and demonstrative and he's a leader, but he had to grow into that.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts stunk when he first started playing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now it's his third year. Second year in the scheme. And the same thing's happening. He's growing. And he's making plays, and he's better in front of the media. He's better on the field.
Yeah, it takes time, and sometimes for some players it takes a little longer. Sometimes for some players it doesn't take as long.
Everybody wants, Herbert and Mahomes.
That's right.
Those are anomalies.
How about it?
It's more like Josh Allen and Hurts.
Today, Pro Football Focus released a mock draft. And they had the Bears with the fourth pick picking.
That was yesterday. They're taking a quarterback from Alabama.
There you go. And so Alex Sims says, does Greg think there's any scenario the Bears will take a quarterback in next year's draft? I believe there's no way. There's no way. They gave this kid this kind of talent around him and said, prove it to us. I think I read that right. But
I'm not going to say there's no way because, Fields could fall off the face of the map and just totally not develop.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the answer to that. We're 4 games into the season. There's still 13 games to go. A lot of football. Put it this way, he's halfway into it. He's only played 14 games, so he's like halfway to that at the end of the season, and he's gonna, he should be a lot better by, given more time in this offense than he is now. Will he? If we had the answer to that, we'd go over to one of those betting places and put some money down.
Exactly. There's tons of information out there, lots of good things to read and talk about, and listen and watch and so forth. If somebody releases a mock draft, don't do it.
To me, a mock draft right now is a total exercise in futility.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's clickbait. Okay, number one, and this is the biggest reason, you don't even know who the hell's in the draft. Juniors can't declare. They can start, they could publicly declare in November, December, whatever, but they're not officially in the draft until January. But when they publicly, declare that, they're in. You're guessing that these underclassmen could be in, but for whatever reason, they might not be. Like going into the season, everybody had this kid from Ohio State as the number 1 receiver. He was a slot receiver last year. He caught 95 passes. Oh, he's going to be the best receiver in college football. He's got 4 catches.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now he's been hurt. He got hurt in the first game against Notre Dame. I don't know what the injury is. I don't know how serious. He played the game after that, but he only had 2 catches in that game. And he didn't play. I know he didn't play last week. And part of the, I like the receiver and I see what everybody else likes. But here's the thing. Last year he had 2 outs. He was playing the slot, strictly playing the slot. 2 outside guys both went in the first round. Who do you think was drawing all the coverage? The 2 outside guys.
Oh.
This guy was a sophomore last year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so all of a sudden, he's because the other guys are drawing a lot of double coverage and they're trying to take away those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Smith and Jigba is the guy who ends up being the go-to guy in number of catches, not big plays, but number of catches, and gets 95 catches. So is he really, and I'm just throwing a dart at the wall here because he hasn't played enough this year to really say, and because he hasn't played very much this year, that doesn't mean he's going to necessarily come out. So is he really as good as some people say? Now, I'm saying that the wide receiver class is pretty damn good. There might not be some of the great receivers like last year. I think it's too early to get into that, but it's deep.
Unknown caller.
What the hell is going on?
I don't know who the hell is calling me and why they're calling me. But,
you're going to get good receivers in the 2nd and 3rd round.
Mm-hmm. Yep, indeed.
And history says, Aldo, that you get real good receivers in the 2nd round. I made up a list and I had it in that article. I don't know if I got it here. Okay. A-Rob, 2nd round. Stephon Diggs, 5th round. Ty Hill, 5th round. Cooper Kupp, 3rd round. Devontae Adams, 2nd round. Amon St. Brown, 4th round. You got to take a guy in the 1st round? No.
And Eberflus was asked about the prevalence of wide receivers who are coming out and playing well, and he was asked why, and he says, well, it's because college programs are really emphasizing the pass, and so they're spitting out better wide receivers than ever before. I mean, and that's where the money is now for players. They know that being a running back in football is not where the money is at. Wide receivers where the money is at, so people want to play that position now.
Yeah, but part of it too is how they're coaching the position. It used to be, and it wasn't that long ago, that when a rookie came in, and I think we've talked about this before, is you tried to teach him all 3 wide receiver positions, and you want him to back up, and he's put on overload, and he plays slow because he can't. Okay, am I at X? Am I in the slot? Am I Z? Well, this is what X does. You're just thinking too much, and you can't play at full speed. Well, then some coach had the idea that, well, maybe we ought to just keep him at one spot to start him off. Let him learn X and play X. Okay. And then after he gets acclimated really good there, then we'll start to fill him in with some of the other things so that we can do more with him. And that's one of the reasons why, you got 6 and 7 receivers on a team now, on a roster now, because not all these guys can play every position. They only can play 1 and maybe 2 of the 3 wide receiver positions.
We got a question here from Turin about Jerry Vanisi. Passed away. Did you know Jerry at all? And for those who don't know, Jerry Vanisi was an executive with the Chicago Bears who really was a key figure in developing the 1985 Chicago Bears. There are many stories about how he helped save Mike Ditka's job because Ditka was so temperamental. He was upsetting so many people at Hallis Hall back then. It was Jerry that acted as a mediator between the McCaskies and Mike Ditka and did so much. And coincidentally, when Jerry Vanisi left the Chicago Bears was when they started a gradual downturn. Do you, Greg, know Jerry Vanisi at all? And anything you want to share about
I really don't know him. I met him once and don't know him.
Well, I'll tell you what, he, a special guy based on some of the literature I've read over the years. So God bless him and his family and And for all his friends and fans, we wish you all the best. Greg, anything, I feel bad. There's new people joining us now, and we're ready to shut off the lights here. Yeah. Anything that you want to share with people before we finish this episode up?
No, but I'm going to say they're going to win this week just for the hell of it.
Yes.
They won at home. Now they got to win one on the road. They had a chance to win one on the road last week. Now, granted, the Minnesota offense is pretty darn good.
Mm-hmm.
Great running back. They got a great receiver. They got a quarterback who's hot and cold. Mm-hmm. I think you put him on his ass a few times and he's going to stink. And he's going to start throwing the ball to you. But the key is getting him, getting a lot of pressure on him. But at the same time, the defense, I think, is very average. And so you're going to be able to do some things against that defense, hopefully run the ball pretty good. I know what the Bears are trying to do. They're trying to shorten the game by running the ball so much, but you've got to have success. And actually last week they did throw a little bit on first down, more than they have been doing. But then there's other situations where they were totally away from the pass game. I just think that's just got to come together a little better.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's take a quick look at the schedule here, because after this game on the road with Minnesota, it's a short week. They play Thursday against the Washington Commanders. I always want to say Commodores because I'm a big Lionel Richie fan, but it is the Commanders. And then they're back on the road for 2 games, a Monday night affair with the New England Patriots, who are struggling, and week 8 against the Cowboys, and potentially a return to Dak Prescott, unless Jerry Jones has named Cooper Rush as a starting quarterback. Look at, I'm getting another call. Jeepers.
Why don't you turn off, press the button down, then you won't hear it.
I'm trying. I don't know how to do it.
It's on this. You got an iPhone? It's on the side.
I did turn it off, but it's now on the computer. I got to figure out.
Oh, I see. They're going to beat Washington. New England is not very good, but they're so well coached and they play hard. Mm-hmm. Who knows if their quarterback's going to be, Mac Jones is going to be back then. They put up a good fight in their game last week. They lost the game. But again, it's going to be a tough game. Playing Dallas, that's going to be tough. This is a weird part of the schedule, probably the toughest part of the schedule. You got 4 out of 5 games on the road. Mm-hmm. And that's hard. And on top of that, you got a short week. Actually, 2 short weeks. You got a real long time. You're playing Thursday night, and then you don't play again until Monday night. I mean, what's with that? Why aren't you playing Sunday and then Sunday instead of going from Thursday to a Monday night game and then having to have a short week again?
Mm-hmm.
Especially for a road game.
Yeah. Now I look at that last, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. While there are 4 out of those 5 games are at home, they are against the Packers, the Eagles, the Bills on Christmas Day, and then the Vikings to finish things up, and the only road game being at Detroit. That could be a real miserable ending to the season, given the quality of opponents they'll be facing there. So, but it doesn't matter, because we're going to be patient, Greg. That is the word. The word of the day is patience. Everyone, please be patient. Greg, it's always fun talking football with you. As somebody in the chat room said, I love to tune into this show because my anxieties are relieved when I hear Greg talk about the Chicago Bears. You give a level-headed approach to the game, and that's what we need right now. More of that and less of the crazy stuff we see on social media. Any last words before I hit that button with the closing video?
No, I think I got to get back to my real job. What's going on over here right now? So
I know what you're talking about. You take care, and my best to everyone. And thank you, everyone who's joined us live, and let people know that this show is now available on demand on YouTube here, and also will be on our audio podcast stream in about 30 minutes or so. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
See you later.